All right. Where do you guys want to start? Do you want to start with I Told You So? Because that's where my notes wanted to start.
If that's where you want
Go
to
ahead and tell us.
Oh, I love I Told You So. I Told You So. Hugh Freeze has now gotten two commitments from position players, 3 if you include, specialists, which are cool, I guess. 3 commitments if you include specialists, and 2 additional commitments from former Alabama commits. So he has flipped 2 Alabama commits and landed 3 more in the last calendar week. A few weeks ago, I came on this network and I told you that Kalen DeBoer is battling something in the state of Alabama that Nick Saban never really had to. Not even never really had to, never had to. And that's a competent recruiter at Auburn. Nick Saban coached through 4 coaches at Auburn. Tommy Tuberville's last 2 years, one was a winning season, one was not, were the first 2 years there with Nick Saban's run at Alabama. Then he got the Gene Chizik years out there at Auburn, which just pretty much culminate with Cam Newton and then nobody, which rolled into the Gus Malzahn years of recruiting at Auburn, which was a non-recruiting festival under Gus Malzahn. They pretty much hovered anywhere from 12 to 20 on the annual recruiting rankings. All right, and then there's the Brian Harsin years, which you guys know was about as big of a joke as it could possibly be, especially on the recruiting trail. And then he had 1 year of recruiting against our man Hugh Freeze, in which he lost 4 out of the top 10 battles in the state of Alabama. Okay, he signed 3 of the top 10 players. Auburn signed 4. So in the 1 year, Nick Saban actually had to recruit against somebody that was worth a shit on the recruiting trail. He actually lost the state. And right now, Kalen DeBoer is getting his eyes boxed in right now by Hugh Freeze. All right, Hugh Freeze is doggy walking the state of Alabama. All right, players ranked number 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are Auburn commits right now. Number 2, Jared Smith, is predicted to land at Auburn. All right, so it ain't even close right now. They're going to sign 9 out of the top 10 players, 8 out of the top 10 players. The other 2 in the top 10 in the state of Alabama, Naeem Offord and our guy Zion Grady, are going to Ohio State. All right, so Auburn is doing their damn best in the state of Alabama, and that's bad news for Alabama. But here's the good news for Alabama: Kalen DeBoer's got the number 2 ranked class in the country, and he's getting walked in his own backyard. So it's kind of this interesting dynamic going on right now, boys, where it appears to me that if all things go like it seems they're going to go for Auburn this year, they're going to land a top 5 class, basically doing it all in the house or the state of Alabama. And then Alabama's going to sign a top 5 class, signing everything nationally. This is, I would say, not great for the rest of the SEC, particularly if these 2 teams are going to recruit at the top 5 level. You got some dudes to battle out there with those 2 programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I touched on this a little bit last week, but I think the state of Alabama is such a unique situation because I think Alabama is really the only state where you get 2 big-time programs going head-to-head on the trail, really, and like big 2. Like Texas is the only other state that I could really make an argument for.
And they've got 3.
Yeah.
Because Oklahoma gets in the mix, and they're not in state, but they might as well be.
Exactly. And I would say that it really doesn't even feel like this, though, if this continues to be the trend of Hugh Freeze and Kalen DeBoer battling out on the trail. So I think it's very unique that, one, they're taking kind of different approaches. Kalen DeBoer recruiting nationally, taking some guys outside of the state, Hugh Freeze tapping into the state. So I hope this continues because I think it'd provide a good case study over the next few years of, well, who's winning. They're both winning on their trail, but whose method is winning best on the football field.
I mean, DeBoer's got 3 5-stars, from 3 different states. He's got 5 stars from Texas, Mississippi, and California. I think it's 4 from 3 different states. I think he's got 2 5-stars from Texas.
Wow.
I think the worst part about this for the rest of the SEC is it's a sustainable model. There's always going to be good talent in the state of Alabama for Auburn to pick from. Going on the assumption that Alabama continues to follow this model and Hugh Freeze continues to follow the same, there's always going to be talent in Alabama. There's always going to be talent nationally. And if Kalen DeBoer can tap into that pipeline nationally and Hugh Freeze can dominate the state of Alabama, you have a massive problem to where both of these programs have an ability to recruit for a long time.
Do you think people fail to realize that, or fail to remember, or at least fail to credit Hugh for what he did at Ole Miss on the recruiting trail? Because I tweeted about it today. I feel like people forget that Hugh Freeze was out here stealing recruits from Alabama at Ole Miss And granted, he did so with some backlash from the NCAA, but now we know that, like, there are no governors. There are no rules. You can do whatever you want. And by the way, he's doing that now at Auburn, which is far better of a recruiting pool than Ole Miss. And oh, by the way, he's got the Yellowwood money, which runs deep, which runs really, really deep. So, and I love that Hugh has approached this as we will go when it's time to go. You know what I mean? We're not going to be rushed to go out and get heavily involved in the transfer portal at quarterback this year, despite the fact that we obviously need a better quarterback, and our quarterback situation is not great. We're going to hold off because we're not ready. We're going to wait until the next year instead of just constantly pushing the chips in every single calendar, or every single cycle, I should say, rather. So I like what they've got going on. I like the idea that I walked into the Omni hotel room at 12 or hotel lobby at 12:30 the night before Hugh Freeze was supposed to speak to the media, and he was already humming up and chumming up the media in the hotel lobby. I like that. I don't know if that's always like, I don't know if I always would have liked that, but the idea that he seems to be approaching this as, I've got to hit all of the bases at the right time, as opposed to just, trying to hit home runs constantly.
Yeah, and I think what he did at Ole Miss is just pushed to the wayside because there was just these allegations. And so everybody...
It's like he don't count it because he cheated?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And I think that since we're kind of pretty detached from that time period of when that was, people kind of forget of what was going on, the happenings, and also like what the new college football era is right now. And so I think it was, Hugh Freeze coming in, he's not going to be able to recruit because he's a phony, and we know that because the only way he got recruits is because he cheated. Well, now, I mean, the door is open for him. He can have the pick of the litter, and he's also a really good recruiter as well.
Chat's talking about Auburn is not going to have a top 5 class and laughing at it. They're 7th right now prior to the addition of Anquan Fagans that just hit about 15 minutes ago, and they got a good chance to land 5-star Jared Smith. So where do you see them going? Because I see them going up. I don't see them going down, or at least holding where they're at. I know there's a bunch of 5-stars left out there. I know Tennessee's got a 5-star or top 5 ranked class, and they're in the mix for guys like David Sanders. They're probably not going to land Jamie French, but they're in the mix for other 5-stars. But where do you see Auburn's class going? Because it ain't going to freaking plummet.
Plus, if they don't land a top 5 class, it'll be a top 10 class. And when's the last time Auburn had one of those?
It's been a minute.
You're seeing massive improvements on the recruiting end at Auburn, no matter where they end up this year. I mean, they've basically solidified themselves as landing a top 10 class, I think.
And the point remains, you've got a problem if you're Alabama. You've got a problem because there's competency at Little Brother's program, and that's not happened in 20 years on the recruiting trail. That's the problem. The point remains, nonetheless. Despite wherever Auburn lands, Auburn landed with 10 of the top 11 players in the state, or 9 of the top 11 players in the state, and you didn't get any of those. That's important to notice.
I think it's also important to bring up that Auburn was a batted ball away from everybody looking at their season last year completely different. I mean, in the Iron Bowl, they were literally a batted ball away from beating Alabama, probably keeping them out of the college football playoff. And then, I mean, that you end the season by winning the Iron Bowl your first year, Hugh Freeze. You had Georgia on the ropes as well at Jordan Hare. I mean, that season would have looked completely different just by beating Alabama. I mean, you had them on the ropes till the very end, should have won that football game. So I think that people would be looking at them completely differently and giving them a lot more respect, adding on what they're doing on the recruiting trail right now.
I mean, shit, they were God dang, phone's going crazy. They were a fourth quarter comeback away from beating Alabama and Georgia this year.
Yeah.
And personally, I think the only reason they really were in that game as competitively as they were against Georgia was because of Hugh Freeze's offensive game planning. Mm-hmm. The quarterback run design that they had in that football game was phenomenal. It's probably the best run package that was developed all year last year against Georgia.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was something that was out of nowhere as well. I think that was like game 6. That game was like in the middle of the year last year.
It was fourth
maybe
game.
early.
Yeah, week 4.
All right, so it was like fourth game. So
it was Georgia's first true road game.
Correct. And they had like 3 or 4 games on tape, and Peyton Thorne hadn't had any design runs. They did all of it with Robbie Ashford, and then all of a sudden in that football game, they had 3 or 4 design runs for Peyton Thorne, and they all hit like nobody's business. So I think he's not only a really, really good recruiter, I think he's obviously a relatively good football coach as well. So like, I think it's a different challenge that, again, I don't think Auburn's ever presented to Alabama. Gus Malzahn battled in football games. I mean, he had I think he was 7-5 against Nick Saban, or excuse me, 5-7 against Nick Saban.
I don't think they played that many times. I think it was like 2-4.
All right, 2-4. Nonetheless, he was closer to 500 or better than any other coach that has gone up against Nick Saban. But he did so through schematics and trickeration. He did not do so due to accumulation, right? This Hugh Freeze cat's out here recruiting dudes and has been pretty much since he started the game of recruiting. Do you guys know how Hugh Freeze got his start?
Yes.
We've
talked about this, I think.
If you start telling the story, I might remember it.
Hugh Freeze was the offensive coordinator for Michael Orr.
Yep.
Yeah, I do remember.
And got a graduate assistant's job with Ole Miss, and then the rest of the story is written. So there you go. Shout out to getting connected to a 5-star. You know what I mean? Just if you want a college job and there's a 5-star near you, just go hop in the pocket of that joker, because you might end up on a collegiate staff someday.